As we know, literacy, of course, is the foundation of all learning, and your application certainly addressed in Attachment D the layout for the reading block for elementary grades. My question is really related to your middle school plan. So for level 1 and 2 students attending your school as middle schoolers, I noticed that you said you would use the K-12 reading plan of our district, but I would really like you to describe in detail the structure and components of that middle school reading course for these students, including progress monitoring and the actual resources that will be used.
I can help answer that question, and Patrick can jump in as well. For sometimes the sake of even simplification, it's easy for me to say in one of the other schools we're participating in because it's a similar program and a really large middle school there. The number one thing, of course, is to know where the students are when they're coming into you, because they're all going to have different needs. And specifically answering your question on your level 1 or level 2 readers is knowing where those kids come in between previous scores and also our baseline assessments that we do. We have currently our students, they are doing a double block of reading, so they're taking back-to-back reading and English language arts. In the past couple years, specifically in Broward County, that's changed where you're not required to have a double block as long as you're providing the interventions and the actual remediation for students. For us, the goal would be to be fluid. I know that we have, I think that what we identified, unless there's a different adoption, is moving into journeys and using Edge and Insight as intervention and support materials for the students who need it. We have a very strong understanding of the overall MTSS process and supporting students that need it. After school reading support and camps, not just for credit recovery, but actually for your at-risk and struggling students. So for us, for those level 1 and 2s, is to really perform the diagnostics and find out why are they struggling, where's their deficiency, how many years back does it go, and making sure that that's what we're actually addressing inside the classroom, using state-adopted core text and then using all kinds of supplemental materials as well. We've looked into Achieve 3000 as one example of an additional platform that has leveled readers outside of scholastic reading inventory and high interest text for those struggling readers. So I think that the schedule is going to be dependent upon how many kids enroll at what levels they are, and there's always an understanding that it has to be a little bit fluid to meet the actual needs of your population, and figure from there how many students are 1s and 2s and how do you best utilize your reading endorsed teachers to make sure that they're able to meet their needs. In addition to that, our goal in the application and our goal in the mission of the school is that reading is across all content areas, using social studies and sciences to help support those reading strategies. Many years ago, when this first became a push, I was actually a part of that initial MTSS founding framework. And in Imagine North Manatee, which is where I was a principal at a time, we had a very struggling population in the middle school. Elementary looked completely different than what our middle school kids look like. And I had sent each one of our middle school teachers to go through at the time, CAR PD for content area reading, and we put a very strong reading a program into place across all content area where they shared vocabulary. We worked on word origins and some of the basics and, founding principles. Word walls came back, for middle school grade levels, things that kind of fall by the wayside in middle school, but then you realize good teaching is good teaching, no matter what grade and age kids are. Those are some of the strategies that they still need. So my number one goal would be to have strong on-site school leadership and certified and reading endorsed teachers that actually know what they're doing, identify PD for them when they need it, and to build an appropriate schedule based on what those kids' needs are. How many minutes, what are the strategies, what is the supplemental materials that go with an actual core reading program.
So I think that was one of the challenges I had in looking at the application, is there were a plethora of resources mentioned there. And I was trying to grapple with exactly how you would potentially use all of those various resources that were listed. First of all, cost prohibitive, potentially, and more about, what actually are you going to use for diagnostic and progress monitoring?
So I would say for the diagnostics, our goal is to use iReady. And we've come out of using FAIR all of the time. I mean, FAIR was the big one. And then there are some schools that are still using FAIR more for their struggling readers, because those are the ones that you can actually pinpoint those deficiencies still through FAIR, and then use CPOMS and the FCRR for, additional resources. We did move in Broward County where we are utilizing FAIR only one time initially, using it as an additional diagnostic because it's free and it's available and it's there for you, but using iReady as a diagnostic tool and working off of there, and using the supplemental materials to the core, which is, I'm pretty sure, Edge and Inside, depending on what grade level the students actually are.
So SRI and Achieves then would not be part of that.
Those are just some that we've looked into, because you can't do 5, or you can't do 5 or 6.
Exactly.
So you have to pick the best one.
Right.
Achieve, we started to look into depending on the population, because they have a really strong intervention materials, ESE and ELL. And so if we open up a school and you have 5 or 10% ELL, you don't really need to invest in something like Achieve, because it's really expensive unless you need the site license for all of those supplemental materials. So yes, I understand you can't use all of them, but I think it's fair to say that we've researched multiple and understand that it's driven by your actual population. How many do you have?
Okay.
What makes the most sense?
All right, thank you. Let me go on to my second question here. So your application also states that you will use our student progression plan. Mm-hmm. My question is regarding how will course selections be made for your incoming students, specifically for middle school, and how will you address the middle school acceleration components of both the school and district's grade?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you wanted to Sure. Is that okay?
Sure.
We're tag teaming?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So FSA is our main test that we have to look at as our baseline data.